Hello and welcome to the Humans versus Retirement podcast. I'm your host, Dan Haylett, and today's show is going to be an absolute cracker as I'm sitting down with the straight-talking entrepreneur and influencer for the silver economy, the founder and CEO of Bold Not Old, all the way from one of my favorite cities in the world, or just outside one of my favorite cities in the world, Melbourne, Australia, Wallis, Pattisonn. Wallis, a very warm welcome to the Humans versus Retirement podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Dan. It's going to be great. Love.
Can't wait. Cannot wait. We had a wonderful conversation a couple of weeks ago. I'm energized whenever after I spoke to you, when I look at your website, when I look at the work that you're doing, and yeah, I just can't wait to have this conversation with you. And I think I'd love to just to kind of share a little bit about you before I bring you in, because I do. Looking at the work that you do for people, you are truly an authority on how to be an aging entrepreneur. And it's quite clear that you're intent on disrupting the accepted norm around what's possible as we age. And that speaks right to everything that I stand for. And your passion, and it will come through, I'm sure, in this conversation in bucket loads, is to challenge challenge those who are 55 plus to get out of their comfort zone, rethink retirement, and have a go at being an entrepreneur. So that passion, I think, is amazing, and I can't wait for us to explore that in a bit more detail. But I'd love for you to share your incredible journey with the listeners. Wallis, tell us how Bold Not Old came about, what it is, and what it stands for.
Well, Dan, thanks. That's great. I'm sure that every time I do a bloody podcast or whatever, I give a slightly different answer, or it comes out a bit different. But Bold Not Old came about because I had gotten to around 70 years of age, and I'd had a couple of, I'm not going to call them major, but reasonably full on. Health scares. I had a trip on the stairs, fell down the last couple of, tripped on the last couple of stairs in the house we lived in at the time, 2-story. Vowed and declared after that I'd never have another bloody 2-story house. It'd only ever be single story, because this old bird needs to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. I think I'm sometimes like one of those old bloody horses out in the paddock. I'm a bit light on the feet, and I'm sure you've got people out there who can probably relate to that. A bit unsteady. So I tripped off this last couple of stairs. Mind you, I had an arm full of stuff, and I come down on my knees and I damaged the medial meniscus in the knee, and I put up with that for the ensuing 5 years or whatever it's been, and arthritis set in, all that sort of stuff. And just recently I had a knee replacement. That's another damn story. But I finally got to a point in life where I said, we can talk about that a bit later on, because I think that actually that attitude and that sort of thinking, dovetails back into what you're about, because I think you've got to get to a point in life where you go, damn it, I'm just fed up with this. I've got to find another way. Is this going to be how it is for the rest of my life? It can't be like this. I won't accept it. And some of us do that. Some of us don't. Some of us sit in the armchair and just, wait in life's, waiting room. That's not me. And I'm sure you've got a lot of listeners. That isn't them either. And a little bit of advice, don't let it be you, be the person who at least, in the fourth quarter is still out there on the field, even if a bit leg weary and tired. So I sort of, and then I had to have a fairly quick gallbladder operation, have a, gallbladder that had, puked out a whole bunch of horrible things, and I had to have that removed. And so it sort of scared me a bit, really. I'd always been pretty healthy and, always been agile and all that sort of thing. And I got a bit scared with that. And I sort of, I suppose you sort of go, geez, I'm getting older and bloody, I'm feeling a bit mortal, really. We all feel a bit invincible. And, that's me, I think, most of the time. But it sort of was a bit sobering. And I thought, things can go wrong so quickly. And, I started to feel this thing about aging. That was the motivation for it. And I thought, well, what are the sorts of things I like to do? Who else is out there feels the same way as me? I was starting to feel like I was invisible, and, I got tired of the sort of ageist remarks. I don't like to get into the whole ageism thing, but, there were a lot of remarks, and there's things said when you go places, and I was a bit, I won't use the word on your podcast, but I was a bit, cheesed off with that. And I didn't particularly like, the way in which, people spoke and the things that they said. And I'm sure a lot of your, listeners will relate to that, because a lot of people around me do. And so I went off to explore. I always liked dressing up, and I loved expressing myself through my own style, which I'd always done all my life. And always had people pull me up in the street and say, "Oh, I love what you got on," or "I love what you wear." And it's just all very individual. But then I'm a very individual person. I'm not the norm. So, I went off to explore who else there, were in the world that, were sort of like me. Were there any? Because we all feel a bit alone at times. I love what you're doing, because, you're into, saying to people, you're not alone in this. We've got some answers for you. We've got some protocol. We've got some, I don't want to use too big of words, but, we've got things that we do that'll help you sort this part of your life out. And it's a very important part of your life, to not get to the end of your life and, or to get, at the end of your money and you haven't run out of life, you're still going, and then you get into struggle street. Nobody wants to be like that. And certainly people my age, the baby boomers, we don't want to go backwards. We want sustainability. We want to, it's not that we're greedy and we want more. We're not, perhaps we are in some ways, looking to be on the beaches of the world with a pina colada in our hands. But, we want sustainability. So how do you get sustainability? And that's why I like what you do, because it's about creating sustainability. It's not just crunching the numbers and talking about all that sort of stuff. There's plenty of financial planners around. Just like there's plenty of accountants, and there's plenty of most everything. The trick is to get out of that those that, really care about what they do, and care about the impact it has on you. And, listening to you when we were talking, that's what I got out of it. And, I was very impressed when I got off the phone and thought, I like that bloke. He's got a lot going for him, and he cares about people. He cares. The bottom line is, it's not just about financial planning. It's about caring about people's lives, and that goes beyond financial planning. It's one thing to crunch the numbers and give you a little plan, but do you really care about someone, and have you listened to them, and do you know what they're personally really about? And, I find those sorts of things really important. And hopefully, in what I do that. I'm listening to people. I can relate. I'm getting older. I'm 77 years of age. I'm not a kid anymore. Hopefully, I've got some brains, and I haven't sat on them all. And I've gotten, somewhere as I've gone along. And I certainly want to, sustain the lifestyle I have. I live the way I want to live. I travel the way I want to travel. I drive the motor car of my choice. And, I don't want to go backwards on that. And none of us do. I mean, if we're all really, really honest, none of us want to. I mean, I think we're, I think it's a load of crap, quite frankly, when you hear people say, money isn't everything. No, well, it rates up there with bloody oxygen, because they don't take what you're paying for out of billy lids. The last time I checked, I needed to have money. And, the world still revolves around money, never mind about whether it's cashless or whatever. Somewhere or other, the bloody cash exists, even if it's not in your hand and it's not in your wallet.
Mm. Yeah, well, do you know what I really love? I think with what you said and the conversations that we've had is I think, and I'll come back and ask you another question around bold, not old. But in my, in my opinion, what you are standing for and what comes through your website, personal website, the bold, not old website, links will all be to everything that Wallis does on the show notes, by the way. And what you're trying to create, this is about the entrepreneurial spirit. This is about understanding that, we do like contributing, no matter whether we're 30 or 70, and that contribution that can give us reward, and those rewards come in forms of financial reward. They come in like satisfaction, or if you mentor someone or you see them do, but fundamentally, if we're getting, and it comes back to this Japanese concept of ikigai that I love, right? If you find what you're good at and get paid for it, that gives us quite a lot of sense of purpose. So why should we stop doing that? If we stop, find something that you love doing. And now in a modern society, like you've done, Wallis, you've created something that, the barriers to entry to create something global in terms of a movement and the way that social media can work, etc. now means that your message can get out there. You can earn from that message and you can do something that you love doing. And I think when I look at the stuff on Bold Not Old, that to me is a key message. It's not, be bold, be entrepreneurial, be creative, have energy, put the stuff out in the world. Because I think we said before, one thing I want to pick up on with you, and you said something really, really important to me when we spoke a couple of weeks ago. The silver economy, if we want to phrase them that, the people over age 55 are probably the most underutilized resource in the world, with probably some of the most skills that are out there. Let's put that thing to use and get paid for wonderful work that we do.
Absolutely. And look, thinking about that and just sort of reiterating, that is that most of us start out. I've gotten over it, but it took me a long time. But most of us start out and we don't think that what we have is of value. We don't. The question we ask ourselves is, who cares about what I've got to say, or how could I earn money from that? That's not that important. But our lives and our experience and everything that we've done is, it's just singularly the most important thing. We are so short on in the world good, wholesome role models. Where are they? Where are the role models for the kids? Where are the people that these young people are going to go, I want to be like that when I get older? I'm not talking about the rappers and all the stuff that comes and goes. I'm talking about the real wholesome role models. I so often get younger people say to me, oh, I just love you. I don't know that they even know what they love about me, but, they love me and they say, I want to be like you when I get older. And look, it's what I usually say to people. I'm like, personally, I like licorice, but I'm like, a good stick of licorice. I'm not for everyone, but the ones who like licorice can't get enough of it. That's me.
I really like you, but I don't like licorice. So, I mean,
that's well, thank God I used the analogy. I'm not licorice, I'm just like it.
yeah. But I think it's such a key message, isn't it? I think, and again, if we think about what that means for people that are stepping back from a corporate career, thinking about this retirement thing, and as I've said on many episodes, retirement is a man-made concept. Yeah. It's it doesn't actually apply anymore to modern society. But if we're stepping back from a phase of our life which has involved kind of a lot of work, a lot of kind of time and energy to accumulate finances but accumulate skills, etc. What a wonderful way to impact the world, to be the voice that, even if one person looks up to and you can impact someone, that's amazing, isn't it? If you as you rightly said, if you can be a real role model for someone, for people, and to get your style, to get your uniqueness, to get your view, to get your message out there, as I said, is now just it's easier than it's ever been.
Well, 10 years ago, you know, I always say to people, you know, look, if you're worried about all this sort of stuff, think about, you know, 10 years ago, there wasn't the platforms, you know, there just wasn't the space. There wasn't, you know, there wasn't all this stuff that you can do in a few short years. And 10 years is a few short years. In 10 years, everything. I mean, look, I remember when I was younger, a young entrepreneur, you know, to get a logo done, it cost you thousands. You know, to get some printing done, you had to do it in the thousands to get a decent price, and that it still cost you thousands. It was like it was a money pit, and it was never ending. And if you wanted to have some things, you know, you had to have a whole bunch of money to have it. But these days, I mean, it's unbelievable. These days, there's Udemy, there's, you know, there's just so many platforms, masterclass stuff that cost you, you know, 37 or 40 bucks or something to do. There's just so much. Whatever your interest is, Google it, and it's there. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can be painting Easter eggs or raising chickens. It doesn't matter. And that's what I say to people. If you're thinking that this whole concept of being an entrepreneur is some, you know, haughty-taughty, amazing sort of, you know, you've got to do all this amazing stuff to, you know, fall into that banner, you're wrong. It simply means that you're just doing something creative and you're wanting to take it to somebody more than yourself. And then, you know, it's entrepreneurial. I heard a wonderful story, Dan, you know, quite some time ago about, you know, it was a lecture or a talk on entrepreneurship, and it was to Japanese women. And, you know, they were all very reserved, and it was like entrepreneur, like, you know, it was deer in the headlights, you know, they glaze over it, that sort of stuff. They couldn't relate to this thing called entrepreneurship. They were all, you know, housewives and women at home, and, you know, were entrepreneurs. That was for, you know, somebody else. But the person delivering the, you know, the talk was very clever. And what they said was that they had realized that all these women created bento boxes for their children or their grandchildren, and which are lunch boxes, you know, Japanese lunch boxes, and they get very creative. Holy moly, it's a competition, you betcha. The kid goes to school and opens his lunchbox. In Japan, the bento box, well, you know, it's a big competition. Who creates, you know, the most innovative and creative and amazing, you know, lunchboxes? And if that's not entrepreneurship, I don't bloody know what is. So when that was pointed out to them, they were sort of quite amazed, because they never viewed themselves in that light. But anywhere where you enter into innovation and creativity and a bit of competition, that's entrepreneurial.
And I think, like you've kind of insinuated there, I think like it's never been easier to be an entrepreneur. And I think the mindset of people that are, you know, in the 55 plus camp has to be a growth orientated mindset. We have to get our mindset right when we think about stepping back from work, that this isn't the third and final wind down phase of our life. This is, you know, we go again, and we want to strive. And as you said, you know, if you want to learn something different and something else, it's easier and cheaper than it's ever been. If you want to make something, it's easier than cheaper than it's ever been. If you want to deliver something, and like you said, your story is really powerful, because you've only probably got to look within slightly, and you're already realizing that you've got entrepreneurial spirit, you've got ideas, you've got things that you've probably done a number of years ago that you could bring to the surface. So I think it's just and I think I do see a lot of people that I work with get to that point that have been kind of somewhat shackled and held back by corporate world, and they've had ideas for a number of years, but never had the time or the freedom or the opportunity to do them. And they can do them now. And the mindset needs to be right. And the and kind of talking through what that means, and realizing that you have so much to give back to the world at that point in your life for the next 20, 25, 30 years.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you think about, you know, pardon me, people who are 55 plus, you know, looking at it, I mean, you know, really, if they, you know, turned their head around a bit, they'd look at it and go, you know, this is freedom. I've now got the opportunity to, you know, do something. I just, like you said, you know, you don't do it at work, and maybe you don't even want to share it because you know you're not paid for your ideas most of the time. So you hang on to it, you nurture it, and it's something that you've kept and you'd like to do. Well, this is your big opportunity, and I think the important thing there is to not get into, well, what if it doesn't work? Because, you know, the question is, well, what if it doesn't? You know, look at the worst case scenario. You're going to die. You know, is somebody going to come along and murder you because you didn't, you know, you failed at it? I mean, you know, it's just nonsense. The stuff we get into around having to go at things, it's just such a load of rubbish, you know. And I always say to people when they, you know, say, oh, well, you know, and they go on about things, and I think to myself, well, how many people, if you're worried about having to go at something, how many jobs have you had? I'll guarantee there's very, very, very few people that you speak to these days that have been in the one job for, you know, 40 years or 25 years or 30 years. None of those 55-year-olds have probably been in their current job more than 10 years. And they probably had 3 or 4 jobs before that. So everybody that you talk to, everybody that I know, even if they've had really good jobs, they've had a number of jobs in the last few years. So this whole concept of, you know, retirement as we used to view it, you know, think about entrepreneurship as another, you know, another job. But instead of being the jackass of the boss, you know, you're going to be working for yourself and doing something for you. And you're going to be probably putting in a bit more effort. You're probably going to be a bit more committed and hopefully, you know, a bit more focused. And, you know, look, and remember that whatever you start, and this is where I used to fall down in early years, you know, I wanted everything. I'm one of those people, you know, do it now. And could I have it yesterday? You know, that's my nature. And, you know, if that happens on, it's like, you know, the knee replacement. It's been about 7.5 weeks now. The physio came today and he said to me, God, he said, you know, I wish all of my patients, he said, could be doing as well as you're doing. But for me, I was grizzly and whinging because, you know, I'm sort of going, well, why aren't I, pretty much, you know, why aren't I running my first bloody marathon right now? Yeah, and it's just absolute nonsense. It's a major operation and it takes time. But for me, I want everything today, right now, and you know, I want it all done now. So the big lesson for me there has been patience. So I'm going to say to your people, you know, be patient too. Rome wasn't built in a day, and I mean it's a bit trite and sounds like an old cliche, but it's true. It wasn't. It's a pretty amazing structure, and it's still around. It wasn't built in a day, and it takes time. So whatever you're going to do, whatever you turn your hand to, whatever it is that you're going to have a go at, don't forget to give it a bit of time and a bit of space and a bit of, you know, breathing, because it's not going to happen overnight. And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter whether it's, you know, out there or on the internet, and certainly on the internet. You know, I've been putting out, you know, videos on the internet and content and stuff for probably the last, you know, seriously, probably for the last, you know, 2 or 3 years. And, you know, some days I think to myself, oh, I've had enough of this. I'd like to kick this to the curb because it's just not, you know, getting the results I'd like. But it takes time and you never know when it'll happen. You know, you can have 200 people following you today or liking you or subscribing to you, and tomorrow you could have 2,000. You just never know what changes it and what kicks it off. And you've got to hang in there for that.
Wallis, I think it fits nicely into. I'd really love for you, having kind of looked through Bold Not Old as a platform. Can you tell us kind of what Bold Not Old is about? Tell us what the platform delivers, because there's some great stuff on there. There's some, as you said, there's some great videos, and you do a lot of work around this. You write a lot about it too, and you contribute to a lot of magazines and other podcasts. What if someone looks at Bold Not Old, what are they going to come across?
Well, hopefully right now they're going to ignore the fact that it's in transition a bit, because, like a lot of things in life, it's been a bit like Me Too. It's been, morphing. It's been, it's been evolving from its original, where it originally started, to, a platform now where I'm very keen now, and it will be up and running by the end of the month properly. It's got some good stuff on there now you can look at, but it will be up and running properly by the end of the month. And it's now going to be a membership website for $9.97 a month. And it's going to just be full of resources. It's going to have affiliates, lots of links. It's going to have information. It's going to have a whole bunch of stuff, and it'll go across a variety of things, because I think we should have a bit of fun too. So there'll be a bit of fun stuff in there, and you can download as part of your membership. You'll be able to download a whole bunch of video, all sorts of stuff you can look at. People will have joined other programs that will be available if you want to go and have a look at their stuff as well. And so I was really, really keen for a long time to have Bold Not Old become a resource. I'd gone through the phase of thinking I'd run webinars and I'd teach and I'd do this and I'd do that, but none of that really sort of, none of it really stuck. And it's just been an evolving thing to a point now where I'm very keen on where we've arrived and what we're doing. So if you go onto the website right now, it's a little bit in transition, but you'll get the gist that, and you'll see things, and I'm sure you'll like what you see. There's lots of fun things on there, videos. I do Wednesdays with Wallis, which is a YouTube channel, which I rattle on about whatever, I feel like. Sometimes it's about the silver economy. Sometimes it's about, getting older and, not getting into the doom and gloom. Sometimes it's a bit like, give it up, and I don't mean give up the whole thing, but I mean give up the grizzly and give up the whining and the whinging, and get on with it, because what the hell else? And I'm very much that sort of person. I'm very much about, because we've all had to go through it. There's not one of us that hasn't had some challenge in some shape or form, something that we've had to contend with, something that we've had to, and those things can set us back, and we can finish up in our armchair, watching the television and watching life go by. And that makes me very sad when I think that there's anybody doing that. I don't care where they are. I don't care what position or situation they're in. People in the world have done extraordinary things. And older people, there's loads and loads. It's never ending storytelling of older people who have done extraordinary things and changed their lives in extraordinary ways. And that's a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, when you look at it, I mean, there are numerous examples. Some of the biggest changes that have ever happened, the biggest ideas, have come from people in that stage of their life, right? They've come from people that are, because again, I think it comes to this point actually, is human being in the world that we are in now and have been in for a number of years. It's got noisier, it's got more cluttered, it's harder to think, it's harder to have downtime, and actually, I think there's no coincidence that I think we will see a rise of this going forward. I said it before, but you know, this a phrase that you use, this golden opportunity to impact the world. I do think there'll be a rise of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that change the world. And change, and it doesn't have to be a global thing. My definition of, they could change the world in their local community. They could change the world in their, you know, that because they've got freedom and to be creative. They've got freedom of thought. They can sit down and digest. They haven't been able to do this for years, right?
Correct. And you know, I really like, you know, what you've said there about, you know, the impact that older people are having now and will have. Because, you know, the thing is that in the earlier years, and I heard it because I'm, as I said, a baby boomer, but, you know, I heard people say things like, younger generations say, oh, you know, they're, you know, the baby boomers, oh, look at all the things they want. And we influenced, you know, the economies and money and the flow of merchandise. And, you know, it was all catered for the baby boomers because it was such a huge amount of people. And it still is. And they're still catering for us in different ways. And that's what I'm getting at. But, you know, the thing here is that we were written off to a certain extent, that they believed that as we got older, we'd be a bunch of freeloaders. We'd be sitting on the beaches, drinking pina coladas, and we'd be, you know, living off the system. Well, that's so far from the truth that it's just a crock off. And it's just totally not bloody true. And the fact is that people my age, older and younger, want to earn money, but they want to make a difference. So they want to make a difference and earn money. And you can have both. You know, it's not a matter of, if you have this, you can't have this. Yes, you can. You can impact the world, and you can pat yourself on the back and earn money out of it while you're doing it. And why not?
Absolutely. 100%.
Why not?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I've said before in the pod, and I think I said to you, it's, you know, you've probably got more chance in your 50s and 60s of doing that because of everything that you've been through. You know what not to do. You've acquired amazing skills. You've got a network of people to kind of call on and pull on. You know, you've got a number of years of wisdom and knowledge behind you. You're at the best position you've ever been to impact the world and earn money in your 50s and 60s and 70s.
You know, and I really subscribe to this whole, you know, idea of, you know, I heard a man, Australian bloke, he was an older man in his 80s. He is, I can't remember his name. I'd tell you if I could remember it. But he was on a, you know, one of those current affair type programs here in Australia. Oh, probably, you know, a couple of years ago. And he was very, very wealthy. He's probably one of Australia's, you know, very wealthy people. And he was a property owner, and he owned a lot of big cattle farms and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, they were interviewing him because he just bought another one for about, I don't know, 17 million or something he paid for this property. And, you know, the interviewer said to him, you know, you're in your 80s. I mean, you just spent 17 million on another property. Like, well, why would you do that when you're already, you know, super comfortable and you're your age? And, you know, why would you bother? He said, because I'm in the fourth quarter of my life and I'm not getting off the playing field.
So cool.
I'm going to kick goals as long as I can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, you know, that, oh, I thought to myself, oh, what a great analogy. What a great analogy. You know, and it's true. You know, look at football, look at anything that you look at. You know, all right, you know, they're out there in the last quarter and, you know, they've almost got no bloody legs under them. But, you know, they're still in the game. They're still there to win. And amazing, spectacular things happen. in the last quarter?
I think this plays into something we talked about before, and I'd love to get your view on this. And it's a topic of discussion on many of the episodes of the podcast. But I think and without putting your words in your mouth, when we spoke, I think one of the challenges that's definitely out there for people that are age 55 plus, stepping back from work, this retirement thing. And I think you mentioned to me that this kind of happened to you personally, but one of those challenges is around continuing to have purpose and finding passion. And I'd love to get your take on that, because this all kind of plays into that, doesn't it? It's kind of like, well, if you've got purpose and you've got passion, why would you stop doing it just because you're at an age where society have almost told or made you feel like you should stop doing it? If you're in your 80s and you love buying property and cattle farms, or if you're in your 70s and you love building new businesses, or if you're in your 60s and you love, being an entrepreneur and mentoring people, just because you've hit an age doesn't mean that you should stop having purpose and get rid of your passions.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, that's absolutely correct. Why? And I think one of the reasons is that we, like a lot of things in life, we just get sold a pup. I mean, we just buy into the crap. We get to a certain age and then we start questioning ourselves. And that's a matter of, I think, coming back to this whole thing about, am I good enough? Because, sometimes I've heard it from people and I've thought to myself, all this experience, all these years, all this stuff that we've done and these particular people have done, and suddenly, they get a bit of a knee jerk about being good enough, or that, that they're worthy, or they've got something really valuable to offer. They've been out there kicking goals for, whatever amount of years, and then suddenly, they become all knee jerky about, whether they've got something to offer, whether they're good enough, or whether, they just get scared. They just suddenly, I don't know what it is, but they suddenly question. They get into questioning themselves. And I think that, if we're going to be a little bit diligent, I think it's like everything, Dan, there's just times in your life you've got to be a bit diligent. You've got to stand at the doorway and, bloody tell the monsters to, bugger off. You got to, you just got to be able to say, no, it's all good. I'm all okay. Keep going. Keep going. I'm of value. I know I'm of value. I've been of value. And that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed. And, we've all had that. There's been times that I've thought, I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I came with the damn demon. And, I laugh about it. People say to me, oh, well, how do you become an entrepreneur? I said, don't ask me. I wouldn't have a bloody clue. I came with the demon, and, it's never let me rest and never let me go.
That's a serious point, Wallis, right? Because if you that's the identity of Wallis Pattisonn, right? That's part of your DNA. But what society is telling you to do, if you weren't bold enough and unique enough and you felt like you had to be part of the pack, what society is telling Wallis Pattisonn to do is give up your identity. Stop being an entrepreneur because you're 70. Don't be silly. Just sit back and relax. That's that's what society is telling people. And that's why I love your message, because that no matter who we are, at some point in our life, we will take note to what society tells us. We might not agree with it. We might not do it because it's rammed down our throat. And at that point, you need to stand up and be bold and go, do you know what? As you said, stand at the door, tell them to go away, because this is who I am. This is who I want to be. I can create maybe a new identity for myself, but have the core thing at heart of who I am. And I think, more so, as you said, there is a fear factor involved in going it alone. You may have had the comfort blanket of a corporate career, but been very successful. You may have had the comfort blanket of a regular, very good paycheck, that you're letting go of. So there is a number of unknowns and fears that you step into. But at that point in your life, as we've said, you've got more opportunity to be bolder than you've ever been, and some guidance and help and understanding of people that have been through it, that understand it, that know the psychological demons and the opportunities that sit within it. I mean, you know, that guidance is invaluable to helping people realize their potential in their 50s, 60s, 70s and beyond.
Absolutely. I think that, you've got a good point there, Dan. I think, it's a bit like people who come to you. Don't be afraid to ask. People, the one of the drawbacks I see in some of the people I talk to is that they feel if they can't solve it themselves, if they don't have the answers, well then, they don't want to ask.
It's
They
a
don't want
failure to ask, isn't it, for some
to,
people?
yeah,
It's
they
yeah.
don't want to. They
Mm,
don't want to, they don't want to go searching for it. They don't want to. They don't want to be, that sort of vulnerability. People.
absolutely.
It's amazing. It's just absolutely mind blowing how many people are, won't show their vulnerability. They just, they just don't want people to see that because it's, as you just said, it shows, maybe they're a failure or I haven't been able. And look, don't get me wrong, we've all been through that. There was a time in my life when I didn't want people to see that I wasn't as, tough as bloody nuts. I didn't want that. These days I'm as vulnerable, and I don't mind people seeing it, or I'll cry at the drop of a hat. I'm just who I am, but I've come through that. And I think as we get older, one of the things that is good about aging, and there's a lot of good things, but one of the good things is that we tend to have parked our ego a lot. So we get past those types of things, and we get past the point of, you know, people, having to impress people or
Absolutely.
having to please everyone,
Mm.
because, quite frankly, who
Yeah.
cares?
But that's a wonderful position to be in, isn't it? I think if you realize that, sometimes it takes someone to point that out to you, like the ego has gone, the need to impress has gone, and you can now just kind of be truly be yourself. And you don't have to worry about. I think that's a really key point. Well, one thing I do want to pick up on, actually, it's just come to my mind, and it's a question, and I don't know the answer, and I'd love to get your opinion. But in your experience, both personally and hearing others in your with the work that you've done that are in as people get older and retire in brackets, do you think it's harder for people to be vulnerable as they age? Do you think it's a difficult thing for them to be?
Um, well, yeah, that is that's a really, really interesting question, Dan, because I think that, off the top of my head, I'd say, perhaps it is. I always like to look at things in an historical context. And I think historically, a lot of people who are my age and getting older have come from situations where it's a bit like, buck up, buddy. Don't, you got to put on this front. You've got to put on this face. You've got to, you've got to show a tough exterior. You've got to be, you've got to not, show people. I mean, it's a bit like your royal family, isn't it? I mean, kids walking behind coffins, and it's like, holy moly, Jesus! I couldn't even imagine doing it as an adult, much as a young kid. Any wonder he screwed up.
Mm.
But I'd look at all. I think that it is in some cases. It's a bit like having to shed. We just have to shed some of the some of the education, some of the stuff, some of the things that have been drilled into us. We've just got to shed some of that stuff and just go, it's okay to be fragile. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be human. The human side of us is all these emotions, all this stuff that we come with. our soul, our heart, our, all the rest of the stuff. And then over here, when we arrive, we get into all the rest of the crap. And, it overshadows all this. But if we just can just draw it back and just become who we are, I think it's terribly, terribly important. Terribly important. Top of the important list is, to be who we truly are. To be who we truly are. And who is that? To allow our freak flags to fly and our, inner quirkmeister, center stage. Be who we are, whatever that is. And, if I go and listen to anybody at any time, or I'm at a seminar, or I do anything, I love the outspoken, the people who are playing it safe, doing it's like, go backstage, come out and tell me who you are. Show me who you are. Tell me what you're really about, because the rest is all trite and contrived, and it doesn't mean anything, Dan. And I think that's what happens as we get older. We get older, and hopefully life becomes more meaningful for a number of reasons.
Absolutely.
And in that, we can become more authentic. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Oh, no, it absolutely does. It's brilliant.
It's just simply about letting go of what we've been told we need to do or be, and just be us. Allow our freak flags to fly. Be us. Be who we are. And we'll never be sorry for it. And it's not about who else likes it, doesn't like it, or whoever else. It's irrelevant, because in the scheme of things, at the end of the day, will it all matter? Hell no. Hell no.
I think I absolutely love it, and I think because one of the things that I try and explore with people up front, and I'm a big fan, I'm a fan of Simon Sinek's work in terms of his start with why stuff that he does, right? But I do think, and you've touched on this, so I've got this kind of mental model, and it's on a drawing that I use. But I think when we enter into this phase of life that where I specifically work with people on this, age 55 plus, so to speak, and the retirement thing, but I always say you need to start with who, not why. You are at the point in life where actually there is a discovery of who you are that can take place, and you can really define who that is. Don't start with who, don't start with why, start with who, because I believe most people have actually sacrificed to differing degrees who they are for parts of the journey that they've been on, and they've lost the ability to kind of understand exactly who they are. So my tip for people listening is read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. It's great, but there's another level. Don't start with why you're doing something. Start with who you are and who you want to be, and then go on that journey.
Yeah, the other dovetails into it, not the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, great.
For someone today, I said, and I think I said it on my podcast today, Wednesdays with Wallis, I said, if we're only looking at the problem, if our focus is only the problem, I don't have enough money, I can't do this, whatever it is, if that's your focus, you're buggered. Forget it. Give up now. Give it up. Because you've got nowhere to go. But if you start from, okay, that's a problem, what's the solution? And I gave an example of, when I was younger. I bought out, one of the first books I bought out was a book on business and the environment. It was an idea I came up with. It was an entrepreneurial, thing. It was when recycling and then the environmental stuff was all just really starting to, gain a bit of, groundswell, so to speak. Anyway, I decided I'd bring out this book on business and the environment. Oh, well, it was a bit of a furore over it because, you know, everybody at that time was tying themselves to trees and, you know, the businesses were the enemies. But I didn't see it like that. I saw that, you know, we could change things if businesses were on side, and were they, and what were they doing? That's my questioning around life always, which I suppose is why Bold Not Old came about. You know, the big question, like the Big Bang. And I suppose it's been a big bang, really. But anyway, I put this book together, and the whole thing was it was going to be a whole lot of stories about business and what they were doing and all that. And it was a great idea, but, you know, the kicker was that I wasn't only just going to get them on side and get their stories, I didn't have any money. So to be able to afford to do the book, I needed to get them to pay for their stories. So anyway, look, don't ask me quite how I did it, but I did it. And I got a whole bunch of stories, and I got their commitment for their money and got their money from them and all that sort of stuff. As I said, I didn't have any money of my own. I had very little. You know, I was fairly poor. But anyway, I put the book together. I got it all done, did the whole thing. And in those days, it was a lot bloody different than now when you go in and put it all on the internet and do it and download some AI. But, you know, I did this book. And when I got to the last of it, I sort of run out of money. There was some things came up, you know, the old thing about, you know, have a contingency, but I didn't. And anyway, for one reason or another, it was held up at the printers, and I'd run out of money and I didn't have any. So I sat down and I made a list of where the money could come from. And, you know, we always, when we make a list, we put all the most palatable things at the top and then the harder things, you know, down the list, because we hope we're not going to have to get to those ones because they're too bloody hard.
Absolutely.
So we want it to fall within the first lot. Anyway, I went through it. All the first ones tended to drop away, and I got to a point where I had no idea where I was going to get the damn money. I had a nice little motor car, nice and clean and tidy. It was my only means of getting around. Anyway, I sold the bloody thing because I needed the money to, you know, meet the commitment that I'd made to all these companies. Somebody suggested I go back and get some more money off them. But anyway, I made the commitment to them. So I sold the car and I walked for a while until I could make some more money and get another car. You know, it was a solution. It was focusing on the solution. If I had spent all my time and effort and sleepless nights on the problem, nothing would have ever come of it. And I would have really been who knows where. But I didn't focus on that. I focused on the solution, and that there's always, and I told myself at the time there were at least 20, you know, solutions. And I wrote that down on a bit of paper, 20 of them. And as I said, I got further down and they became way harder and more unpalatable. But anyway, I was determined I'd go through the list. If you've got a problem today, if you've got something, focus on the solution, not the problem.
Wallis, I think that is a wonderful place to wrap up this such amazing conversation. It's been such an honor and a privilege to get to know you and to have this conversation with you today. So, and I know you've added so much value to people that are going to listen to this. So look, thank you for your time, your energy, your passion, your wisdom, and the work that you're doing. And as I say, all the links to everything now and in the future that you're doing will be on the show notes. So look, thank you so much, Wallis. It's been so cool to have you on the show.
You're most welcome, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I hope all of those people out there listening realise what an amazing and fabulous financial planner they've got to have access to and to take advantage of. And I'm not saying that just because I'm on your show, but the conversations I've had with you have certainly been different. You're a winner, mate. Good on you.
Checks in the post, Wallis. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. That's so cool. That very humbling. Thank you. And thanks everyone once again for listening into the Humans versus Retirement podcast. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me today. Until next time, take care.